A warm welcome to Christ United Church in sunny Lyn, Ontario. I am Jane Lister, member of Christ United Church, and along with Catherine Carey, will be leading this service, and along with speakers, interfaith speakers Ron, John, Ahmed, and Noor. This morning we have a congregation in the beautiful sanctuary with sun streaming through the stained glass windows. And we have a virtual congregation in the world beyond. All are welcome to this space as we learn and worship together on the subject of peace, a many-layered topic. This is our interfaith peace service, and it's timely. October 24th is the anniversary of the creation of the UN in 1945, and this whole week is dedicated to disarmament, all with important roles in peace. The following land acknowledgement is adapted from the Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement. We begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on Indigenous land. As people, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land. This recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. One of the names of Jesus Christ is the Prince of Peace, and we light this Christ candle with thoughts of peace and goodwill to people of all faiths. This service includes messages, songs, and stories that emphasize the important role of religion in society locally, nationally, and worldwide, and that demonstrate ways to avoid or resolve conflict and reconcile our differences. In this regard, during this service, we would like to ask you to think about sharing a true story without mentioning names, where there was conflict at work, at home, or in the community, and where harmony was reestablished. There will be some time for sharing towards the end of the service. So I would like to ask Ron Rhodes to come and lead a high prayer.
O thou kind Lord, unite all, let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father, gladden our hearts in the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes to the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful, thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh all the shortcomings of all mankind.
Next will be readings by John Pyle, and these three readings are from the Old Testament, which is recognized by many faiths.
These three short readings, the first two are from the book of Isaiah, and the third is from the book of Psalms. Thus he will judge among the nations and arbitrate for many peoples, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not take up the sword against nation. They shall never again know war. And the second, For the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, calm and confidence forever. And from the book of Psalms, loving kindness and truth meet together. Righteousness and peace kiss each other.
This song is called Mankind is One by Susan Engel and John White.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon all of us. The stories do not have borders. They do not have politics. So we share them as a human being. History. And my story goes back to 1,000 years in Baghdad, when Baghdad was the capital of the earth. A rich man had a slave, African slave, and he put him in a farm that he visited once, maybe twice a year. And he asked him to take care of the farm. One time, that rich man, the lord of the farm, decided to visit the farm with a group of friends, which one of them was a young pregnant lady. In the Mediterranean tradition, a pregnant lady, when she wishes any kind of food, it must be provided momentarily. And that lady said, I would love to have sweet pomegranate. The Lord said to the slave, Mubarak, get us sweet pomegranate. So Mubarak went, and he had long shirt to the ground and right away to the trees where are the bomb grenades, and he picked up full of his shirt, came back, put it in front of them. They cracked open every single one. None was sweet. The Lord was not happy. He said, Mubarak, I asked you to bring sweet bomb grenade. So Mubarak went again, did the same scenario, brought full of his shirt, put it down. They cracked every single one. All of them are not sweet. Mubarak, I asked you to get me sweet bomb grenade. Would you please do so? So Mubarak went for the third time. Came back, the same scenario. None of them was sweet. The master lost his control and he yelled at him, have you tasted bomb grenade? Mubarak said, never. The Lord was mesmerized. Look at him. You live on this farm 24/7 and you never ate the bomb grenade? And the slave said, sir, you asked me to take care of it. You did not ask me to taste it. The man didn't add, the master did not add one word. He went back home that night and he had a very beautiful girl. One beautiful girl. Right away to the mother, I found you a son-in-law, which is at that time way beyond any imagination, to let your white girl to marry an African slave. Who is that? He told her, Mubarak. She's not happy, but what she can do, sure. So they got Mubarak, they got the Imam. The Imam came, made the ceremony, and pushed them into a room. This is your wife, this is your husband. That marriage generated a son, was named Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, one of the most famous scholars in our Islamic history. The moral for me of this story is, when you are righteous, you try too hard to keep your ethics, you will see the fruit in your descendants. I thank you very much for listening. It is an honor for me to be standing here. Thank you.
This is a Christian prayer called A Cry of Peace, and it was used as a prayer for the World Day of Peace, and written by Edward Hoyt. Father of Jesus, you who sent your angels to herald your Son's coming with cries of peace, hear our cry now, that your peace may touch all corners of our world. Peace to the smallest child still in the womb. Peace to the most vulnerable of our elderly who long to see your face. Peace to the migrant fleeing war, persecution, hunger, and poverty. Peace to the citizens of those nations to which migrants flee. Peace to those touched by violence and disaster, by storms, quakes, and droughts and floods, who struggle to find safety and mercy in the very world you made for us. You, whose Son called all peacemakers blessed, help us forge peace in your name, peace among nations, peace among neighbors, peace among families. When we look back on this time, may we recall it as the time we all heard the angels cry and work together to reveal that peace to all, a peace worthy of God born into the world. Amen.
This next song is I Am Walking a Path of Peace. It's in More Voices 221. And we're going to do the verses a little differently than usual. We're going to start with hope, then love, and then peace. So you'll just have the one screen there with peace, but it's hope, love, and peace.
to tell another story, the apple story.
Peace be upon all of us again. This story took place at the same city, Baghdad, almost the same time, maybe 100 years difference. And a young fellow in early 20s walking beside a wall of a garden, and he passed by an golden apple tree. He felt that he would love to have one from the fruit. So he picked up one. Start eating. Midway in his eating the apple, he remembered that this apple has an owner and I should ask that person the permission. I am eating something I'm not supposed to eat because it is not mine. So he walked to the gate of the garden to find a guard there. He shared his dilemma with that guard, and the guard said, sorry, the owner of the farm, of the garden, does not reside here. He does have a business, fabric store, downtown Baghdad. He got the address, the man who has the apple, and he walked to Baghdad, to downtown, find the place, and he went right away to the owner of the store. He told him his story. The owner of the store was puzzled. Really, you walked from my farm here to ask me my permission to eat the apple? And meanwhile, the apple will fall off the tree and any other animals will eat it. So what is going on here? What do you want me to do, sir? He said, I would like to pay the price of the apple. The man looked at him and said, the price is way too high because you started eating before asking my permission. Are you willing to pay the price? And the man said, definitely I am here to pay the price. Okay, son, I do have a daughter, was born deaf, blind, no legs. And I want you to marry her as a price for the apple. The man, the young fellow, look around, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, what I have done to myself. Please, let me pay another price. And the man said, this is the only price that I have. Either you pay it, or I will meet you on the day of judgment in front of our God. The young fellow was really threatened and he said, yes, I will pay the price. So, you will meet me after Maghrib prayer. Maghrib is sunset. Maghrib prayer at that mosque. They met there. He took him home. They got the imam. They did the ceremony. He pushed him into a room. There is a standing up, beautiful girl. Now, the man looked. Oh, you are standing up. She said, why you are wondering? Oh, you speak and you hear. What is wrong with you? Your father told me 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you are standing up and you are talking and you are listening and you are so beautiful. And the girl said, my father never ever told a lie. He said, I don't hear what I am not supposed to. I do not look to what I am not supposed to. Do not walk to what not I am supposed to. And that marriage generated Thabit, one of 4 biggest scholars in Islam, the Imam of Abu Hanifa. There are 4 scholars in Islam. One of them, Abu Hanifa, is the son of that marriage. Be careful when you are choosing your son-in-law. Thank you very much for listening.
This next song is See Me Beautiful by Red Grammar. See Me Beautiful is about everyone, not just me or you. I'll just move this here a little bit. Most importantly, it is about looking past the differences, whether they be about race, ethnicity, social or economic status, politics or religion, or even when a person changes their religion, or even if they are fully vaccinated or not fully vaccinated. And also looking past the things we don't like about another person. This is about seeing beauty in each individual as a creation of God and recognizing the spiritual qualities He has endowed each of us with. If we do this, we would be well on the path to peace.
See beautiful, look for the best in me. That's what I really am, and all I wanna be. It may take some time, it may be hard to find, but see me beautiful. See me beautiful, each and every day. Could you take a chance? Could you find a way to see me shining through in everything I do? And see me beautiful. See me beautiful, look for the best in me. That's what I really am, and all I wanna be. It may take some time, it may be hard to find, but see me beautiful. See me beautiful, each and every day. Could you take a chance? Could you find a way to see me shining through in everything I do? And see me beautiful.
And next, I will be joined by Nord Kadra to read parts of the Declaration of a Global Ethic by the Conference of World Religions in 1993. So it's an important foundation for peace, which, as we've said earlier, peace has many layers. The Declaration of a Global Ethic. The world is in agony. The agony is so pervasive and urgent that we are compelled to name its manifestations so that the depth of this pain may be made clear. Peace eludes us. The planet is being destroyed. Neighbors live in fear. Women and men are estranged from each other. Children die. This is abhorrent. We condemn the abuses of Earth's ecosystems. We condemn the poverty that stifles life's potential, the hunger that weakens the human body, the economic disparities that threaten so many families with ruin. We condemn the social disarray of the nations, the disregard for justice which pushes citizens to the margin, the anarchy overtaking our communities, and the insane death of children from violence. In particular, we condemn aggression and hatred in the name of religion.
But this agony need not be. It need not be, because the basis for an ethic already exists. This ethic offers the possibility of a better individual and global order, and leads individuals away from despair and societies away from chaos. We are women and men who have embraced the precepts and practices of the world's religions. We affirm that a common set of core values is found in the teachings of the religions, and that these form the basis of a global ethic. We affirm that this truth is already known, but yet to be lived in heart and in action. We affirm that there is an irrevocable, unconditional norm for all areas of life, for families and communities, for races, nations, and religions. There already exist ancient guidelines for human behavior, which are found in the teachings of the religions of the world, and which are the condition for a sustainable world order.
We declare we are interdependent. Each of us depends on the well-being of the whole, and so we have respect for the community of living beings, for people, animals, and plants, and for the preservation of earth, the air, water, and soil. We take individual responsibility for all we do. All our decisions, actions, and failures to act have consequences. We must treat others as we wish others to treat us. We make a commitment to respect life and dignity, individuality and diversity, so that every person is treated humanely without exception. We must have patience and acceptance. We must be able to forgive, learning from the past, but never allowing ourselves to be enslaved by memories of hate. Opening our heart to one another, we must sink our narrow differences for the cause of our world community, practicing a culture of solidarity and relatedness.
We consider humankind our family. We must strive to be kind and generous. We must not live for ourselves alone, but should also serve others, never forgetting the children, the aged, the poor, the suffering, the disabled, the refugees, and the lonely. No person should ever be considered or treated as a second-class citizen, or be exploited in any way whatsoever. There should be equal partnership between men and women. We must not commit any kind of sexual immorality. We must put behind us all forms of domination or abuse. We must strive for a just social and economic order, in which everyone has an equal chance to reach full potential as a human being. We must speak and act truthfully and with compassion, dealing fairly with all, and avoiding prejudice and hatred. We must not steal. We must move beyond the dominance of greed for power, prestige, money, and consumption to make a just and peaceful world. Earth cannot be changed for the better unless the consciousness of individuals is changed first. We pledge to increase our awareness by disciplining our minds, by meditation, by prayer, or by positive thinking. Without risk and a readiness to sacrifice, there can be no fundamental change in our situation. Therefore, we commit ourselves to this global ethic, to understanding one another, and to socially beneficial, peace-fostering, and nature-friendly ways of life. We invite all people, whether religious or not, to do the same.
We have a story. Catherine Carey will be sharing.
This story is about war and peace from a conversation between Abdu'l-Baha and an arms dealer. Abdu'l-Baha is the son and successor of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith. This story is included in booklet 5 of 9 booklets that have just been published to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the passing of Abdu'l-Baha. And this booklet is entitled Discovering Peace. So I chose this story to read to you. On April 15, 1912, Hudson Maxim, an arms dealer who had lost a hand while developing explosives, stood in the reception room of the Hotel Ansonia. I believe this is in the United States, maybe New York, awaiting a word from Abdu'l-Baha. He had a bone to pick with this prophet of peace. Abdu'l-Baha greeted him in English. Arabic and Farsi were his languages. Welcome, welcome, very welcome. They exchanged pleasantries, then Maxime got down to business. I understand you are a messenger of peace to this country, he began. What is your opinion of modern war? Abdu'l-Baha replied, everything that prevents war is good. Maxime asked, do you consider the next great national war necessary? Abdu'l-Baha answered, why not try peace for a while? If we find war is better, it will not be difficult to fight again. But if we find that peace is the glorification of humanity, the impulse of true civilization, the stimulus to inventive genius, and the means of attainment to the good pleasure of God, we must agree to adhere to it and establish it permanently. Maxime tried a different tack. Fewer are killed in modern engagements than in the battles of ancient times. The range is longer and the action less deadly. This was 2 years prior to the onset of World War I. Abdu'l-Baha invited Maxime to consider the world beyond the narrow confines of the battlefield, pointing out that, quote, the after effects of war are even more dreadful than the initial shock. The country suffers beyond all power of estimation. Agriculture is crippled, abandoned, sustenance fails, poverty and suffering continue long afterward, and we see this still happening today. Maxime's arguments about war that morning ran the gamut of 19th century myth. For example, he claimed that war is human nature, that conflict is an ingredient of healthy social evolution, that economic interests will trump national hostility, that the deadlier the weapon, the less likely it is it will be used, that deterrence equals peace. He said, war is no more dangerous now than automobiling. Abdu'l-Baha could present a compelling argument, but he never pressed a point. Instead, he turned the conversation toward the subject of Maxime himself. You are a celebrated inventor and scientific expert whose energies and faculties are employed in the production of means for human destruction. Now you have the opportunity of becoming doubly famous. You must practice the science of peace. You must discover the means of peace. Invent guns of love, which will shake the foundations of humanity. Then, Abdu'l-Baha added, it will be said by the people of the world, this is Mr. Maxime, inventor of the guns of war, discoverer of high explosives, military scientists, who has also discovered and invented means for increasing the life and love of man, who has put an end to the strife of nations and uprooted the tree of war. Then will your life become productive with really great results. God will be pleased with you. And from every standpoint of estimation, you will be a perfect man. Thank you.
Now we've come to the part of the service where there's an opportunity for those of you in the congregation, unfortunately our virtual congregation may not be able to do this, to share an experience with conflict you had at work or at home or in the community that resolved and resulted in harm. So do I have anyone in the congregation that would like to share a story? Thank you, Paul, for doing that.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is not so much an experience of conflict personally, but it is a story that's very close to my heart. In the last century, when I was in primary school, and that sounds funny, but in the mid-50s, that's when I was in school, so that's in the last century. I had the opportunity to read a book called Stone Soup. I don't know if anybody has read it or heard of it. It's a story about an area in France and Germany called Alsace-Lorraine, and it's on the border between the two countries, and it's been fought over for years. This story is based on in 1870, which was the Franco-Prussian War, but after that, of course, we had World War I and World War II, and the same area was fought over. Anyway, story goes like this. A group of soldiers moved into a village that was being contested, and being as it was almost like a scorched earth program during that time, they were kind of hungry, and they were scrounging for food, and of course the villagers were not happy to see them, so they were hoarding the food that was there. So the soldiers, being kind of inventive, tried to figure out a way to get the villagers to give them some of their produce. So they came up with the idea of stone soup. So what they did is they gathered some stones together, put them in a pot with some water, and started them boiling. And the villagers would walk by and say, well, what are you doing? And the soldiers would say, well, we're making stone soup. But it would really taste really good if we could get some carrots and parsnips. And the villagers talked amongst themselves and gathered some parsnips and carrots, gave them to the soldiers, and they put it into the pot. And they did a bit of a taste. They said, you know, this is pretty good, but if we had some potatoes and maybe some chicken, something like that, the soup would taste even better. So they managed to get some potatoes and chicken, put it in the pot, and of course the soup tasted better. And they shared it with the villagers. So they got their meal. They opened up the village to, the villagers were a little bit more receptive to them. Now, when I first read this story, the first thing that went through my mind was how these soldiers tricked the villagers into giving them the produce to make the soup and feed them. But as I got a little bit older and reread the book, and actually saw an animated version of it that was produced by the National Film Board, I figured, you know what, it really isn't a story about tricking people. It's a story about cooperation and peace. And that's what I learned from it. So that's my story this week.
Beautiful. Does anyone else have a story they would like to share? Oh, sure.
Most of you who know me know that I lived in Sri Lanka for 10 months in 2008, 2009, and that was during the height of their civil war. And every time I got on a bus, I had a prayer square that the bee's knees had given me. I put that in my pocket because getting on a bus or a train was always a bit of a risk at that time. And fortunately, the war ended just at the end of my tenure there, and there was huge celebrations, and we were able to take part in a peace march. And the thing that I found so interesting about that is that even though the war had been particularly between the Tamils and the Sinhalese, the peace march that they arranged in the south where I was, it was the Muslim community and the Buddhist community and the Christian community, and we all marched for peace. And I said, well, where are the Tamils? And the Sinhalese friends of mine said, well, why would we invite them? And I thought, oh, such an opportunity missed here, that there's still, even though the war was over, there was a separation of the states. And the other thing that I just kind of went, oh, another missed opportunity is that what the government did, instead of like in Canada where the French and the English learned how to live together and honor one another's cultures, the Buddhists went through the north and built a bunch of Buddhist temples where the population was Christian and Hindu. And so even though there was a military peace, I thought, what a tremendous opportunity has been missed here. And luckily that peace has held, but it did show that a conflict can end. But I still feel regret that what could have been wasn't allowed to happen. So that's kind of a happy and a sad story, but it sure was a big celebration when the war was over, and there were some amazing parades, I gotta tell you.
So, any other stories? No? Well, I think we have time for me to share my little story. Is that okay with everyone?
Please.
And now you have to forgive me, I have a blind spot from the sun coming in that window. So this is set in the mid-70s. So for you young folks, that's 1970. And Paul, thank you for reminding me, that's another century ago, isn't it? So this is a work conflict set in the mid-70s in a developing northern Saskatchewan. Me, I was the first resident public health inspector, 22 years old in northern Saskatchewan, an area of 711,020 square kilometers, with 43 isolated Métis First Nations communities, some drive-in and some fly-in only. As I traveled around in my huge area, the themes of bad housing, unsafe water, unsafe sewage disposal, and unsafe garbage disposal occurred over and over again. The way northern Saskatchewan was organized, government-wise, those days, there was one person with the authority to begin fixing these issues, and that was Mr. P. He and I soon became in conflict. He avoided me because he knew anything that I was calling about was bad news for him, and that would cost money, which of course he didn't want to spend money. And it was easy for him to be that way because he was 150 miles south of L'Orange in Prince Albert, and communication was scanty in the north. There were still many active radio telephones and much less active phones. Now one morning, Mr. P, and I just want you to picture, likely wearing his fancy suit, shirt, and tie, was fuming mad for some reason. He called us in L'Orange on our new 10-button phones. Now, does anyone remember the phones with a red button, a clear button, a red button, a clear button? Well, we had kind of, I guess, a total of 10 buttons with 5 lines. The unfortunate thing is, enter new secretary. And the new secretary wasn't skilled on this, so she yelled to me, "Mr. P on line 1, and promptly cut him off. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times. On the 6th time, I was successful, or she was successful, to connect me to Mr. P, who was laughing. He was laughing so hard he could hardly contain himself. I could visualize him loosening his tie, maybe undoing the top of his tight shirt. And from that day on, we were a positive force for change, resulting in improvements in people's quality of life day by day. It was, little bit by little bit. But we became fast friends for a number of years before he retired. And we were able to laugh at our previous fighting conflict days. And I should add that he was about 50 years old, so I was 22, he was like in his 50s at the time. So I just am so grateful to God. God uses humor to result in peace too, to encourage peace. And if you had told me that I would be laughing with Mr. P and that we would really have a good working relationship, that would have surprised me. So now let's go to the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses,
and we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
So as we go to our final song, I heard yesterday from an organizer of World Faiths at a global level that the energy and traction for peace is at the grassroots, just as Joanne described with the peace marches in Sri Lanka. And such as our congregation here in the sanctuary and our virtual congregation. And that person was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Jerry White. So with that knowledge in our minds and our hearts and our hands and our feet, peace and blessings be upon you all every day. And so we will sing, Go Now in Peace.